Welcome to Elevate Pod, where we elevate your mindset, inspire your spirit, and ignite your leadership journey. This podcast is brought to you by Elevate Leadership Services. My name is Pearl.
And I'm Chibwe.
We are the co-founders of Elevate Leadership Services and the hosts of Elevate Pod. The Elevate Pod is dedicated to inspiring and empowering listeners with a focus on minorities and immigrants. We offer tools, resources, and pathways to foster personal and professional development.
Thank you, Pearl. And today we are greatly honored to have Dr. Jennylynd James, who will be sharing most of our experiences, the journey that she has had, her thoughts, her insights, her intellect on a topic of opportunities for food safety professionals. Many of us never considered food safety as a career. Now it's a stable, purposeful, globally essential field. Our guest will empower us to explore and demystify the various roles within food safety, inviting us to see the essential field through her creative lenses. Tune in to hear a Renaissance woman, artist, writer, vocalist, and food scientist share insights that reveal the artistry and impact behind keeping every meal safe. Let me briefly give you the bio of Jennylynd. Dr. Jennylynd James is a true Renaissance woman, an artist, a writer, a vocalist, a food scientist with over 25 years of experience in the industry. She holds a PhD in food science from McGill University in Canada. Dr. James has worked in food processing, the fresh fruit and vegetable industry, food services, academia, and food safety auditing and compliance in Canada, Europe, and United States, the Caribbean, and Latin America. You can see the breadth. She's an expert in food safety and quality assurance, and she's passionate about the need for food safety as a fundamental part of food security strategy. Dr. James has conducted food safety and quality at numerous food enterprises and also providing training and consultation to food industry professionals. In 2009, Jennylynd discovered a hidden talent, an art while living and working as a food industry entrepreneur in Ireland. The art of Jennylynd is held by collections of in the Caribbean, in Mexico, in the UK, in the States, and in Canada. But above all, Dr. James is a mother to a lovely daughter, Tiffany. Jennylynd, do you have anything to add to this broad experience that you've had across the globe?
Well, thank you so much, Chibwe, for the grand introduction. And thank you so much, Pearl, for including me in Elevate Pod.
Thank you.
We're glad to have you. Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Today, we're diving into a realm that is not only vital, but often goes unnoticed, which is the world of food safety. Join us today as we shine a light on a remarkable woman who embodies the perfect blend of artistry and science. Our guest is not only a food scientist, as we have heard from that bio, but she also is a gifted artist, a passionate writer, and a soulful vocalist. Her unique perspective allows her to bridge the gap between the technicalities of food safety and the rich narratives that food can tell. So prepare to be inspired as we explore the intersections of creativity and science and discover how her diverse talents contribute to a field that influences the well-being of communities around the globe. So let's embark on this journey to uncover the artistry behind food safety and the stories that shape our meals. So let's dive in. So I'll go straight to my first question. What first inspired you to explore food safety? And how have your other artistic pursuits influenced your journey?
Well, in terms of learning about food safety, I would say I had a series of fortunate accidents. Fortunate. Because for my undergrad degree, I did a Bachelor of Science in Biochemistry, and I was considering entering medicine. That is the path that I had chosen at the time. Well, coming to the end of my bachelor's degree, I realized I had really no interest in medicine. I had spoken to several friends who were studying medicine, and I thought, that's not what I want to do. And so I was studying at McGill for my undergrad degree, and I went back to Trinidad and Tobago, my country of birth, not knowing exactly what I wanted to do with my life. I had the bachelor's in biochemistry. I applied for 1 or 2 jobs as a biochemist, and they said, you need to have further studies, at least a master's, or you need to have done research, so a PhD in biochemistry, which I didn't have. So then I thought, well, I had to do something with my time. I taught at junior high school for a number of years while looking for something else to do. So I taught biology, chemistry, physics. It was a great adventure, very difficult job with teenagers, but I did it. And I stumbled across a food technology master's degree at the University of the West Indies in Trinidad. And I said, well, this sounds interesting. Maybe I should get into the food industry. So I didn't know about the food industry. So I started the program, and it was excellent. Food technology, so application of science in the industry. With that degree, one could go directly into industry and work because it was applied. And so I had to do food microbiology, right? Quality assurance. So with the food microbiology, in fact, that was an introduction to food safety, learning about harmful bacteria, spoilage bacteria, yeast, molds, viruses. So that was like the introduction to food safety, which is a field I knew nothing about at the time. So after graduating with this master's in food technology, right away I applied for jobs in the food industry in Trinidad. And my first role was product development, new product development. That was the first role. Design a pizza sauce, make a tropical fruit salad, and all that. So it was fun and games. I was implementing what I had learned in my course, getting people to taste product and evaluate it, do surveys and all that. And then shortly after, leaving that particular company, I worked as a quality assurance manager at another company. So looking at quality as well as ways to avoid product contamination. So I was responsible for those programs. And as I say, ways to avoid product contamination, it was food safety in practice, right? So that was my introduction to food safety. Following this master's degree in food technology in Trinidad. Well, as fate would have it, I said, okay, maybe I want to go on and study again. Because as my parents used to tell me, I'm a perpetual student. And I would say, yes, I am. So I applied several times for a Commonwealth scholarship, and eventually I got a Commonwealth scholarship to go back to Canada. And my interest at the time was learning about biotechnology and genetic engineering techniques. I was curious about the techniques, how to do genetic engineering. And I wasn't sure how I would apply this knowledge afterwards, but I just wanted to learn about it. And so I went back to McGill, but this time, instead of the downtown campus, I went to the agricultural campus out in Philadelphia. And again, with this degree, I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do afterwards. So coming to the end of my studies, I thought, okay, well, I'll do a postdoctoral research fellowship because that's what everybody else was doing at the time. And I got a position at an agricultural lab, research lab in Florida. Now, the research project had absolutely nothing to do with biotechnology. But I took the postdoc anyway because I thought, okay, I will learn something new. It was post-harvest handling of grapes. And that was my introduction to a job in agriculture, doing research and handling of grapes. They were muscadine grapes, typical of North Florida and Georgia. And that was the introduction to agriculture and handling of agricultural commodities. So as I say, a series of fortunate accidents. After the postdoc was done, I had to find what people would label a real job. So a job in industry or teaching. And so I had applied for several teaching positions. Chibwe would remember I had an interview at University of Manitoba in Winnipeg, and Chibwe had said, oh, I hope you get that job. I hope you do. So she'd have a friend in Winnipeg.
Yes.
Well, I had applied for several teaching positions as well as industry jobs. So I did manage to get that job at University of Manitoba. But at the same time, a position came up with a company in Oxnard, California. And they wanted somebody to create food safety programs for their farm operations, their pack houses, and their salad plant. Did I know how to do that? Not at all. But I gave a convincing argument in the interview, and they hired me. And I was determined to be successful in this new role. Instead of going to Winnipeg at minus 40 degrees, I was going to California, and I was determined to be a success. And the company treated me very well. They sent me for training, right? There was a lot of training at the time for, let's say, plant sanitation, quality assurance, food safety, as it relates to agricultural commodities. And I needed that training because I'd never worked in agriculture, not in industry. So that was my first true job where I was responsible for food safety programs, developing food safety programs, training people on food safety. So I was learning as I was creating programs and teaching people.
Wow.
That was a true introduction to food safety. And I've continued ever since in different capacities at different food enterprises, learning and then implementing what I've learned. Constantly, it's like that. And I enjoy that because, for every student, I'm still learning. I would do any course that's offered, and then I would teach people what I know. So it's a long answer to your question, but
so that has been your journey.
Yes, the beginnings and continuing.
I like this because you actually took us to the next question that I would like to ask. And that is now how you can define, because you talked about how you came to be in food safety. Now, can you
Yes,
maybe define or
yes,
explain the
yes.
concept of food safety to our
Right.
audience or to
Now, I
someone who
have
is
a
not familiar?
definition that I'm going to read
Uh-huh.
from the Food and Agriculture
Okay.
Organization.
Okay.
So, food safety refers to the scientific methods, conditions, and practices implemented during the production, handling, storage, and preparation of food to prevent contamination and foodborne illnesses. It ensures food is safe to eat and does not cause harm to consumers throughout the entire supply chain. So just imagine the food supply chain. You're starting from production, primary production, we call it, fruits and vegetables grown on the farm. Then they're harvested. The commodities go to pack houses where they're sorted, rinsed, graded. And they go to retail sites or food processing plants. All right. And then you may have food processing, packaging, and then product is sold to or sold at retail establishments, and then the consumer would buy and take it home. So all along the chain, we can think of ways to avoid product contamination and keeping food safe. And only the safe food handling practices are backed up by scientific research. What is the best way? Even to wash fruit. Research has shown that if, I know in North America, we use chlorinated water in some of the pack houses to rinse the fruits, get the dirt off the produce. Now in California, the water is recycled. You use one cycle of rinse water. You do have to filter it, add more chlorine, use acid to lower the pH so that the chlorine is active. So a lot of research went into establishing what level of active chlorine is needed. What range of pH is best for the active chlorine. So there are research papers like that.
All right.
And you think of safe food handling in a processing plant. How must people dress? Cover their hair with hair nets. Wear clean clothing. Wash your hands frequently. There's research to back up all of this when it comes to safe food handling in pack houses, food processing plants. Storage. If you think of storage at a food processing plant and safe food handling, just in the storage room, if you have allergenic materials, so let's say dairy products, you want to store dairy products away from non-dairy, eggs, gluten. So in terms of storage, we have to think about separating allergenic material and even the right temperature, right? To keep the food safe. So there's a lot of thought that goes into storage and is backed up by research. And then we think about food preparation and processing, sanitation programs, clean the lines. If you ran allergenic material, you clean the line to remove the allergens. And retail and food service. Imagine the food processing plants do all this good work. They hand their clean products over to people in restaurants. What do the restaurants do? They have to be serious about food handling.
Correct.
In food service. Otherwise, they will contaminate the product, the good product that was supplied by food processing plants. Sometimes things fall short in food service. And so there's another area where safe food handling practices are very, very important. And just think about the consumer. On the package, it says refrigerate after opening. Some consumers ignore all the warnings, the guidance on the packaging. Cook before eating. Some people will be in traffic and they start to eat a sausage that said cook before eating. And they get sick and they wonder, why did I get sick? Well, you didn't follow the guidance on the package. So safe food handling starts, from primary packaging all the way to the consumer and consumer practices in the home.
Wow. No, thank you. You have actually defined it's a lot of steps, but each and every person who handles that food has to ensure that it's handling in a safe way.
Yes.
That their hands are safe, are clean. The containers they are using are clean. So it's really every person. And I think I know if you want to start selling the food for these people who make food at home, there is a training that you have to take for food. It's called a food safety handling, and you can be a manager because you have to know how to store the food, how to cook the food, what temperatures, and all those things. So yeah, this is a very good, more detailed description of what food safety is all about. It's a lot of steps. Thank you so much.
Yes, everybody is responsible at each step in the food chain.
Correct.
We really are, even in the home, to keep your family safe.
Yes. Yeah. And you know what? There are many times, even most of us, we are working, anywhere you are working, you come home, you just pick on something and you start eating. I think that's another thing that causes, because it's not the food actually, it may be your hands and everything.
Dirty hands, yes, it happens.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So that takes me to my next question. That was a very good description. I feel more educated after
Thank you.
after that explanation. Okay, now how has globalization not only changed the landscape of food safety, but also influenced your artistic and scientific practices?
Okay, well, I'll answer when it comes to globalization, because we have more trade, more easy trade these days, from one country to the next. From a food safety standpoint, we have to be conscious of any foodborne illness in one country, or let's say the use of ingredients that are banned in one country, and we bring these ingredients to another country, we do have to be more aware of what is happening. So following trends, particularly in when it comes to which ingredients are safe to use, like some countries might ban a particular ingredient, but then it's sold in your country, and you have to know, well, why was it banned in this other country? Is it because it's cancer causing? We've been using it for years, and things change. Things change constantly. What we've been using for many years, this year it may not be safe because research shows that it's cancer causing. So another thing that could affect with globalization, food fraud and substitution is a big problem.
Yeah.
Food fraud. So when you buy ingredients in another country and you bring it to your country, are you getting the exact ingredient that you ordered, or has it been substituted in some fraudulent way? So we find a lot of problems where that is concerned, and somebody, at a food processing plant must be aware of ingredients that have historically been subject to fraud and substitution. These would be, I'll give you some examples, more expensive ingredients like spices. If you think of cinnamon, Powdered cinnamon has been diluted with sawdust from wood.
Oh,
Honey has been diluted with sugar, syrup,
wow.
maple syrup, diluted just with sugar and water. Olive oil, they say there's more olive oil sold all over the world than you actually have olive trees because it's expensive. So people dilute it with mineral oil, soybean oil, all sorts of cheap ingredients. So manufacturers have to be conscious of the ingredients that are subject to fraud and substitution especially when they're importing, but even buying locally. You have to have programs in place to check and double check your ingredients. So one program for fraud and substitution, one way to get around it, you know your supplier very well. You get certificates of analysis from the supplier for each batch that they ship. You compare this with the specifications that you agreed on, and you see if they match. If they're not matching, something's wrong. Don't buy it. Don't pay for that. Something is wrong. And another suggestion is a short supply chain. Because if you buy from a broker who bought from a broker who bought from a wholesaler who bought from any manufacturer, chances are along the way, somebody is going to substitute fraudulent material. So it's suggested that you have a short food chain. Now, how does this tie in with food safety? Well, on your label, you're going to say what your ingredients are. You're supposed to have an ingredient declaration list. Suppose you put your ingredient declaration on your label. You use ingredients that were substituted with an allergen, and people get sick from your product, and you didn't know. You can't tell the government, well, I didn't know. You're supposed to know what ingredients you put in your product. So, especially when we're importing, but even when we buy locally, products are subject to fraud and substitution in every country. So we do have to be aware. Another global issue is regulation. Regulation of the food industry, regulation of food safety. So there are a number of food safety standards that are acceptable. They are approved. They are popular. Like one of them, BRCGS, it used to be British Retail Consortium. Now it's Brand Reputation Through Compliance Global Standards. Very popular food safety standards and standards for the food industry in general. And there's another one that's popular in the United States, SQF, Safe Quality Foods. You'll find a lot of companies around the globe, they are getting their food safety programs audited and approved under a number of these different food safety auditing schemes. I know about this because I am a food safety auditor. So I'd go out to companies, audit against the food safety standards, and then submit a report. Is this site fit to be audited against the food safety standards? So we have a number of global standards now that are well respected, well recognized. They are benchmarked or compared against the Global Food Safety Initiative, which is a well-recognized international food safety standard. So any standard that wants to be recognized, they try to match all their requirements against the Global Food Safety Initiative standard. And then once they get approval, they can ask companies to be audited against their standards. So these food safety standards are global now. They're not necessarily restricted to small regions. And that helps a lot when we talk about globalization, because a retailer in the United States would recognize if somebody in Turkey has a BRCGS certificate, food safety certificate, they say, oh yeah, I know that standard. I can buy from them because it's a rigorous food safety standard. So these food safety standards are global, and they really help in selecting approved suppliers, selecting who you want to buy finished product from if you're a retailer. So in terms of globalization, I'd say the food safety standards really provide a platform where we kind of shrink the world a little bit when it comes to food safety standards and recognize food safety standards. They have helped in selecting suppliers, or for retailers, selecting who they should buy finished product.
Wonderful, wonderful. You know, I think, when did this standardization start? I think, when did
Back in the 1990s,
okay.
BRCGS, British Retail Consortium, was one of the first to develop. It was a group of British retailers, and they were one of the first to develop a food safety standard that could be audited, that companies could be audited against. And then since the 1990s, other standards have been developed, others. Now, in some countries, they haven't yet gone, use SQF or BRCGS. I know a lot of African countries, they're still using ISO standards.
Okay.
So ISO 22003, that is a food safety standard.
Okay.
But a lot of companies in African countries, they're using ISO 14000, which is environmental programs.
Okay.
And then ISO 9000, which is related to quality. The ISO 22003 is not recognized by GFSI. Not yet.
Why?
They probably are missing some bits and pieces that are part of the Global Food Safety Initiative Food Safety Program.
Okay.
So there's one country, I know in Kenya, a lot of their food processing plants are audited against the BRCGS standard.
Okay.
But many of the other African countries, I haven't seen that yet. When last time I looked was, well, not last year, 2 years ago.
All right. Okay.
And when I was actually in Ghana 7 years ago, I was asking about that. I was lucky to get a meeting at Ghana FDA. So I was looking to see if there were opportunities there to do some consulting or to move to Ghana. I was looking at opportunities. They were not aware of the BRCGS programs, which are the ones I've worked with most. They were not aware of them at that time.
At that time.
I don't know if this has changed.
All right. Yeah, there's a lot of information that you have provided, and I think our audience, they see the breadth of this discipline, the profession, because many of us, we just look at the food safety as a little pocket, but you can see how broad and diverse.
Yes, it's broad, and in terms of gaining employment in the field, you could go in many different areas and change quite frequently, which is what I did over the years.
Yes. And actually, you're taking me to my next, question. Thank you. So with your unique perspective, which career path within food safety do you think, or do you believe, holds the most potential for growth and stability, especially for those with varied interests?
That's a tricky question.
Okay.
Stability, I don't think these days that exists. Okay. So what I like to talk about would be the different paths.
All right.
Different areas in which one can work. Okay. Right? So one career path would be quality assurance and food safety management in processing plants, because that type of career is not going anywhere. Everybody has to eat. There are many different food processing operations, and food safety and quality management is essential. So that is an area where you can find opportunities all the time. It will always be there, always, always. We need people to manage food safety and quality management systems, to build the systems, manage the systems, train people who work to continuously create safe food of the best quality. So that is one field, whether it's in production, primary production too, you know, like in harvest the product, and then you have pack houses, food processing, food service. Because even in food service, yes, you're not processing the food for long-term storage, but it is for immediate use, but you still have to think about food safety. And then retail. I have been to supermarket chains. I started filming because I have my YouTube channel now, a new YouTube channel, Food Safety Smart. Christmas time, I saw sliced ham with fruit on a table in a retail outlet. No ice, no refrigeration, nothing. Just sliced ham on plates, and they put plastic wrap over it. And it was out all day long. So I passed with my camera, YouTube Live, food safety nightmare waiting to happen. It was out all day, sliced ham.
Wow.
Can you imagine? And sausages. There was one bowl that they looked like they started with ice, but it was no longer ice by the time I passed, which was water. Nobody was monitoring, and it was out all day. So the retailers are doing their part to make safe food, but when it gets to the supermarkets, if they don't do their part to keep the food safe, people will get sick. They will get sick, and it would be the fault of the supermarket.
Yes.
Yeah. Somehow they try to blame it on the manufacturer, but they mishandle products every single day. Yes, they do.
Wonderful.
So, when it comes to retail, I know there's some retail companies in Canada that take this very seriously, and they do have a director for food safety and quality. They do have that. Loblaws is a big supermarket chain in Canada, and they do have a food safety department. They take it seriously because it's a huge company with many chains. But not everybody.
Where does compliance fit in? Because there should be also a department for food compliance and everything else.
Yes, so in terms, you mean of government overseeing them?
Correct.
There is no, I don't think it's as strict when it comes to government compliance. They focus a lot on manufacturers and not retailers.
Okay.
No, I think it's deficient in that area. Even for restaurants, you might have the restaurant oversight is local. Okay. So local, cities may have a department where people might go into restaurant chains and check. But it's not as stringent as, like FDA in the United States monitoring food manufacturers. They focus on the manufacturers, and then the retailers get the product, and we don't know what happens.
And you know what? This forfeits, because when we started defining what food safety, we looked at the entire end to end. Because we started from production, from the farm, to the mouth of an individual. So there is something that is missing, according to the discussion we're having now. Is that if we are not following
food
the
processing plants, there's quite a bit of oversight for processors. For agriculture, USDA in the United States, you have CFIA in Canada.
Correct.
But when it comes to restaurant chains and supermarkets, I think there isn't enough oversight on the way they handle food products.
Okay.
I don't think it's as stringent as the way food processing plants, what is
Managed.
demanded of food processors is quite high compared to supermarket chains. Now, I lived in Ireland, and for a short time, I did retailer audits. One company was auditing retailers to see how they handle product. So that was a good program. I'm not sure. Okay, in Canada, there was one company I knew who was doing this, but it's not enough. And it's kind of left to local offices in cities to manage.
All right.
That sounds like gaps in accountability.
Yes.
Correct.
And regulation.
Yes, yes. The government, let's say, states are not managing that program. They leave it to local governments to manage it. So they're either efficient or not.
Okay.
I can't speak for them because I know I audit food processing plants, and they have to be sure that they're supplying safe products. And there are many programs for processors, many. But they would sell their good product to retailers or restaurant chains, caterers. What happens next? So the
time is running for us, but at least we have a couple of questions that we have for sure.
Yes, go ahead.
We'll tuck them in. But thank you so much for that elaborate.
Yes, and you were asking about careers. So another career that I think is useful after working in industry, you could train as a food safety auditor. So I did that after years of working in industry. There's always a need for food safety auditors and young food safety auditors. Right now, the pool is kind of close to 70 years of age. They need young food safety auditors. It's a very thankless job. You get no thanks, but your thanks will be in your heart for keeping food safe.
Wonderful.
There's a need for food safety auditors. People to do consulting, ability to design food safety programs. You come into a new factory, they don't know how to start, design, and implement food safety programs and train staff. Problem solving, like a food fraud regulation, setting up food safety programs. Implementing artificial intelligence, AI. To help in designing food safety programs, not take over, but help in designing food safety programs and addressing challenges like food fraud, meeting government regulations. So we need people who are proficient in AI, who can use those tools to help in designing food safety programs, right? Overseeing whatever food safety challenges come. So use of AI. So there's a lot of growth there because it's untapped at the moment.
Wonderful. Yeah, so there are so many jobs that anybody, I think it's called food safety with a lot of opportunities for.
Yes, the opportunities are there. You just have to look really and see how you can fit it.
Wonderful. All right. Okay, Pearl.
Maybe I can squeeze in a few more, or how we doing?
Yes. No, we can go a few more.
Go ahead.
Okay, so for immigrants and underrepresented professionals in food safety, what barriers have you observed? You may have spoken to some already, but what barriers have you observed, and what advice would you give on navigating these challenges?
Yes. Well, in terms of barriers for immigrants, I know in moving or changing countries quite frequently, moving to Canada in particular, the barrier I experienced was not having Canadian work experience. It was used as an excuse not to give me a job. So even though I had studied in Canada, I worked in the United States, I worked in Europe, I worked in Latin America, it just wasn't enough. I was told I had no Canadian work experience. Now, what is it? What is it? It's an artificial barrier, in my opinion, because I had international work experience. So it was quite traumatic to experience this. And I would say, in terms of getting work in that type of environment, let's say your qualifications are outdated or unrecognizable because you come from a foreign country, you may have to bite the bullet and study again to get a recognizable qualification in this new country that you have migrated to. A recognizable qualification that everybody knows. Another thing too, when you move to a new country, you don't have a network. In Toronto, Ontario, people like to hire who they know. If you just arrive, you don't know anybody. So you need to find ways to network and network frequently. So I tell people, you know, my first job in Toronto, I got by going to a musical event. I joined a choir and I decided to volunteer for a fundraising event with the choir. At that event where we sang, there was somebody on the board of directors, and I went up to him and started saying, you know, I can't find a job. I can't find a job. I have all these qualifications. And, you know, I'm a food scientist. This was a music event, okay? And he said, well, give me your card. You know, he gave me his card. He said, send your resume and I'll see what I can do. So I sent him my resume, and sure enough, he knew a president at a food company, and he sent him my resume and I got an interview. This was a music event. So you can network at any event and talk to anybody and tell them what you're looking for. That's my point. Okay? It doesn't have to be an event in your field that you want to work in. So you just go out, talk to everybody, and go out frequently and talk to everybody. Recertify, study in your field again. I know it's expensive, it's time consuming, but you may have to do this. And as one person told me when I was interviewing, because I have my own podcast, they say, don't be afraid to enter the ground level. You want to be a manager. You can't get the management role because you just moved to the country. So take a lab technician role. Or I met one person, I think she was from Sierra Leone. She worked in the sanitation crew, and eventually she became the QA manager. And I was saying, how could you do this? Well, when she got there, she just learned any training program the company sent her to, she took it. Eventually, they realized her potential and made her the QA manager. No questions asked. She had a degree from her country anyway, but she was working as sanitation. You think, oh my God, such a low-level job. It paid off because while she was there, she was learning and contributing to the food safety program anyway. You know that? Because sanitation is part of food safety. So she sat on every committee that they had and assumed leadership roles, because even if you're a lab technician, you could just see if you could sit on this committee, sit on that committee. If they need a leader for a group, volunteer as the leader. Because when you're seen as a leader, eventually people say, oh, this one has management qualities, I will hire that one as a manager. So ask questions often. But as for new immigrants, take language classes. If you're not proficient in the language, there's nothing wrong with taking language classes. Some cities offer free language classes. Go and learn the language. Learn how to fill out documents, especially technical documents. Ask questions. Is it filled out correctly? And learn on the job every single day, filling out technical documents. So in the end, if you were to become a manager, you're proficient in the language, you know how to complete paperwork correctly. You've practiced taking leadership roles. So even if you start at the bottom, you keep your eye on the prize, you know, which is a management role. And as I talk about going back to school, that is a place to network. So you're studying again, but you're making new connections that could lead you to a job. So it's not just going to study the same material twice. No, you have to think further than that, the networks that you make, because as I say, in some, I know in Toronto, people hire who they know. Well, you're going to know people in the school, and then after they will know somebody who knows somebody to get you the job. So you have to use the opportunities to network if you go back to school.
Wonderful.
Nice.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much. I think we're running out of time. So we are going to ask one of the, at least the last question so that you can leave some memorable, inspiring information to the wannabe food safety professionals. Can you do that for us?
Okay, so continue learning because you can never learn enough. I continue learning. I've worked in the field 30 years. There's always something I don't know. So I just do the class, get my certificate, and see what else I need to learn. Because it really has led me to different jobs in food safety. Right now, I do training of people in industry. Why? Because I did the job, train the trainer. I did the training, and now I train auditors and managers in the food industry. Another thing I would advise is go where you're treated best. If you are in an area, a city, a job, and you're not treated well, move and move quickly. Move quickly. There's no reason to suffer. You have one life, move quickly and go where you're treated best. People don't appreciate your skills, move. There's no obligation to stay anywhere for any length of time. Anybody tells you different, don't listen. So move for opportunities, better opportunities. And if it doesn't work out, you know what? You could always move again. It doesn't matter. Who's keeping score? Nobody cares. Move for better opportunities. You learn from a mistake and you just carry it. It doesn't matter if you fail. I listened to one podcast and they say fail forward. Fail forward. So when you fail, you learn the lesson and then you move forward. So fail forward.
Wonderful.
That's it.
Right. Thank you. Thank you for your message. And I hope our listeners are taking note of that. But we have come to the end of our podcast. But Pearl, do you have anything to say before I start my closing remarks?
I just realized that we may need another session for you because we have barely
Jennylynd
touched.
talks too much.
No, you were very elaborate and that was really, really remarkable. But we have not touched on the artistry, the writer side.
Yeah, but those
We
are
would need to.
different topics.
Yes,
Another time.
we would need another session for that. So there's still a lot to tap in. So I'll leave it here for now.
Oh, perfect. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Jennylynd.
You're most welcome.
Yes.
Thanks for inviting me.
Wonderful, wonderful. As we wrap up, remember, food safety isn't just a science. It is about people, it's about culture, and it's about trust. And it's about keeping you safe with the food that you ingest every day. Our guest's journey proves this field thrives on diverse talents. Scientists, I think storytellers, artists, we all bring essential perspectives to the field. If you're thinking about the career in food safety, your background is an advantage. The field needs creativity, as you heard. It needs curiosity, as you understood from our guest. And it requires voices that can translate science into real-world impact. So thank you for listening to our guest. Until next time, continue to be curious and never forget that food safety is everyone's responsibility.
That's right. Thank you so much, Shabri.
Today's conversation shows us that food safety is a space where science, culture, and creativity all come together. Protecting our food system takes more than technical knowledge, as we have heard today. It takes communication, empathy, and even diverse perspectives. So, whether you're transitioning careers or you're bringing talents from art, writing, or music, there is room for you in this field. So, thanks for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you for joining us on this journey to elevate and inspire. Until next time, lead with purpose and grow with impact.